Hello, this is Max. Today's story is about a man who, while being at a resort, got into trouble because of a girl with whom he had romantic involvement. You can subscribe to the channel after watching. It helps us a lot in realizing the content. During their stay at a hotel in Litolka, M questions James, her spouse, about a peculiar statement he allegedly made regarding not being able to nourish himself with the thought of a paradise beach. James has no memory of it, making him believe he uttered it in his sleep. M's confusion grows. James' recent distant behavior makes it hard for her to distinguish between his conscious and unconscious states. James attempts to reassure her, but she pushes him to grab breakfast. While eating, a staff member named Ketch introduces the guests to the local festival, Umbromak, which celebrates the impending monsoon season. They are marked with Fet Yegapate, signifying unity and friendship. He also highlights a peculiar mask named Eki. At their table, M reminds James that he chose this location for inspiration when he complains about the surroundings. She proposes a boat tour and dinner, but he declines, skeptical about the authenticity of the resort's town. M, wanting to explore on her own, gets his consent. While M is away, James encounters a disturbance caused by a man on a quad bike. A woman, Gabi, reveals the man is a local who wants to intimidate tourists. The conversation takes a turn when Gabi recognizes James as an author. Later, Gabi introduces James to her spouse, Elban, inviting them for dinner. That evening, over dinner, they discuss their professions. Elban is a former architect turned journal editor, while Gabi is an actress known for humorously botching simple tasks in commercials. When the topic of James' next book surfaces, the atmosphere becomes tense. M states that he's halted writing, but James contradicts her. The dinner culminates with a jest about James marrying into wealth, leaving an unsettling silence. The next day, James is keen to go on an outing with the Bowers, despite the resort's warnings about local crime. M is hesitant but eventually gives in. Outside the resort, at a beach, dynamics shift when Albin jokingly offers James sausages and Gabi makes an unexpected intimate move. On the way back, with James behind the wheel due to an inebriated Albin, they accidentally hit a local. The shock reverberates through everyone. Rather than notifying the police, they, driven by fear and Gabi's insistence, rush back to the resort. A close call with security raises tensions further. The ensuing morning, police arrest the Fosters. At the station, James meets Detective Thresh, related to their car's provider, and learns of the deep-seated complications that await them. Detective Thresh claims that the Bowers, after stealing his uncle's car, put a farmer named Myron, leading to his death. M has verified this. In Litolka, in order to preserve the family's honor, the victim's eldest child must straighten out the perpetrator. However, he mentions a unique law for diplomats and affluent tourists. They can pay a substantial sum for a clone to be destroyed on their behalf. The clone would have their memories and feel their guilt. James, having no other option and feeling pressured, agrees. The preparation process involves taking James' measurements and dental impressions before he is submerged in a red substance. As he is enclosed, he's flooded with various sensations, including visions of Gabi and other bizarre images. All this while his clone forms. When he regains consciousness, M is with him. They are then shown the successfully created clone, which unsettles M. Fresh insists that they must witness the execution. As the clone gains consciousness, its fear and pleas upset the Fosters, particularly M. The clones destroyed by Myron's son is gruesome, with M distraught and James oddly fascinated. Upon their departure, Fresh provides them with an urn containing the clone's ashes. M quickly prepares to leave the country upon her return, but James reveals he misplaced his passport. Although distressed, M still wants to depart. After some persuasion, James suggests she goes back to America alone. However, M confronts him about his unsettling reaction to the destroy. Brushing this off, James goes to the front desk to sort out their situation. At the lobby, he's distracted by Gabi's gaze. After discussing an extension for their stay, Gabi approaches him to apologize and invites him out. She shares her past experience when an infinity pool her husband, Elban, was constructing collapsed, causing 2 deaths. This led them to discover the cloning solution. She hints that James might find inspiration in this event and introduces him to her exclusive group, including the Bowers, Charles, Jennifer, Dr. Bob, and Bex. When Jennifer discovers James is a writer, she's curious about his work, but Bob interjects, asking her to ease off. Jennifer teases James by referring to him as a zombie, hinting that everyone in their circle has undergone the cloning process. Albin comforts James, mentioning that they share a unique bond due to their shared experiences and the privileges of wealth in Litolka. Bob raises an intriguing point, questioning if James believes he's the original or the clone, sharing his own doubts post-cloning. Jennifer dismisses the significance of this distinction, and James can only hope he's the original. The author seeks solitude, yet Dobby tags along. Witnessing his distress, she reassures him that feeling like he's adapting to a new self is natural after his recent experiences. She then implores James to place trust in her for the upcoming night. After hearing a gunshot, they rejoin the gathering. Charles invites James to participate, casually draping an arm around him while holding a gun. The group explains their plan to steal a medal from another resort's owner, who had wrongly accused Albin of causing an accident years ago. Dobby reveals this to be a response to the insult he inflicted on them. Charles coerces James to join using a gun. Intoxicated, they break into a souvenir shop, sharing laughter and camaraderie. They each take an Eki mask, with Beck selecting one for James. Upon reaching the mansion, they instruct James to enter first. Struggling to open the door, he springs into action when a woman opens it, attacking her. Full of anger, they chase others, armed with weapon. James guards the captives, the owner, his partner, and a maid. Dobby tries to get the writer to shoot them, but he backs away, disappointing her. Albin arrives, questioning their actions. Dobby sarcastically remarks that James is playing chicken. Enfazed, Albin invites James to indulge in the owner's supplies. Unbeknownst to them, a bodyguard waits to strike. Dobby confronts him, resulting in the deaths of the women and the bodyguard. Albin is shot in the leg and is carried to James' nearby place. Em is taken aback by the arrival of masked strangers and the wounded Albin. James urges her to stay calm. The next day, the group is arrested. They remain unfazed while conversing in the cell, even in the presence of Detective Thresh. Their lack of remorse leads to their forceful removal from the cell. As they panic, they offer to pay any price, but they are led to the destroy room. Though James resists, they are subdued and ultimately destroy. Abby's group cheers as they witness the clone's demise. The next day, James returns home to find him packing. She invites him to leave with her, but he reminds her of his lack of a passport. Observing his increasing embrace of his cruel freedom, Em is devastated by the transformation in her husband. In retaliation, he responds by advising her to go back to her father and departs silently. Left alone, he places the urn containing his most recent clone's ashes beside the first one. That afternoon, he informs Gabi about Em's departure. She suggests it's for the best since they weren't compatible. She labels Em as a type of woman who fosters weakness in a man, a trait that requires significant effort and transformation to change. Gabi then kisses James and takes him to his room to introduce him to the use of traditional Litolkan herbs, which have religious significance in the country. After using the substance, they bonded. Charles informs him one day that Thresh, as per his contact, is hindering the writer from acquiring a new passport. Gabi encourages him to assert dominance over the detective, and Bob reveals Thresh's upcoming medical procedure. Subsequently, they kidnap Thresh and take him to their hideout with a bag over his head. Under the influence of herbs, James brutalizes the detective while Gabi watches with satisfaction. The cloth is eventually removed, and James is shocked to see that he was attacking his own clone. In a state of panic, he leaves the room. His companions mock him, with Gabi knocking on the door to explain their collaboration with Detective Thresh to create the clone as a prank. However, James doesn't take this supposed joke well, retrieving his hidden passport from under the sink. The next day, he boards a bus in an attempt to flee the county, but Gabi's group blocks the bus, firing shot and threatening the other passengers until James surrenders. Terrified, he steps out of the bus as the group laughs. They return to the resort, with James walking alongside while Gabi sits on the expensive car's hood, admitting that she never read his book. She reveals they targeted him as a source of entertainment. She accuses him of falling into their trap and getting arrested without their intervention. Gabi further provokes him by reading negative reviews of his book. highlighting how people perceive him as pretentious, masking a lack of talent. An incident occurs where Gabby's wine bottle rolls off, giving James a moment to attack her. However, the group easily subdues him, and Gabby laughs at his futile attempt. He flees into the woods, and Gabby shoots him in the leg. Determined to escape, he reaches a farmhouse before collapsing. A local family provides assistance and takes him in. Upon awakening, he sees Myron's son, who grins eerily and proceeds to strangle him. As James struggles against his restraints, the son's visage distorts into M's, her laughter taking on an eerie tone. In a disturbing sequence, she tears James apart, jolting him awake from the unsettling nightmare. Recovering his strength, he emerges from the house, only to be met by Gabby's group. Gabby orders Jennifer to bring the dog, and a leash clone of James, behaving like a canine, appears. They demand that James end his clone's existence, asserting that this is the sole path to his evolution. Strongly opposing the idea, James directs the clone to fetch the knife they provided. However, the clone instead attacks him. Gasping in frustration, James unleashes his anger and destroys the clone. Overwhelmed by emotions, he breaks down, prompting Gabby to hold and comfort him. The subsequent day, James contacts Sam to announce his return home as the resort is shutting down for the season. The resort's guests, which include Gabby's group, board a bus and converse casually about resuming their regular lives, as if concluding an ordinary vacation. Meanwhile, James occupies a seat at the back, observing them. Upon arriving at the airport, the Bowers bid him farewell, expressing the anticipation of seeing him again the following year. After their departure, James watches other travelers waiting for their flights, pondering the deeds they might have engaged in during their stay, all facilitated by financial transactions. Several hours later, James finds himself alone in the airport, unable to return home and behave as though nothing unusual occurred. Instead, he decides to head back to the no-deserted resort, where the upcoming monsoon has driven everyone away. Seated in solitude, the broken man watches the rain pour down, hoping it might cleanse the transgressions he indulged in during a brief period of consequence-free freedom. If you are interested in such films, please proceed to the next video on the screen, and also share your thoughts about this film in the comments. Give us a like and subscribe. Goodbye.